What's up, y'all? Today's drawing session with Simo, we are going to pretty much go over 1 point perspective, cityscape that's in 1 point perspective. So what you'll need is some kind of a pencil. I'm using a mechanical pencil, an eraser, some kind of eraser. We will be doing a lot of erasing, and of course something to draw on, and one that is pretty important in my opinion is some kind of a straight edge, whether it's a ruler, protractor, or just something that has a solid straight edge will work. Now on your sketchbook or any kind of blank sheet of paper, you definitely want to have it landscape. Since we are kind of drawing a city, you want it landscape, not portrait. Although you can do it in portrait, you just don't see as much. Your view is very limited in portrait. So if we have it in landscape, we can actually see more. Now, one of the first things that you need to do is you need to determine where you're going to put your horizon line. And the horizon line is just where the sky and the ground appear to meet. A lot of people would probably like to put it in the middle of their paper, which is fine. You can put it a little bit higher or a little bit lower. The choice is totally up to you. I am probably going to get a little bit closer to the middle, but not quite the middle. And I suggest trying to draw as light as you can, because you're going to be doing a lot of erasing. I am drawing a little bit darker so you guys can see what I'm doing. Normally, I would like to use a lighter pencil because I am somewhat heavy-handed. Anyway, the next thing that we want to do is we want to put our vanishing point somewhere on this line. The vanishing point is basically where all these diagonal lines are going to appear to converge, where they're all going to meet up. You can put your vanishing point anywhere on this line you want. Since I'm just kind of demonstrating, I'm going to put it close to center. Now, when you're doing a vanishing point, it's just a really small dot. You don't want to make a huge dot because you're going to try and pretty much aim for the center of this little dot. If your dot is too big, some of your lines may not meet up. That's why just a little mark for your vanishing point. Now, one of the things that I have told my former students, you want to start with your first two buildings. So we're going to do one on the left side, one on the right side, and pretty much after you get your first couple buildings, everything else is easy when you're just kind of putting in your blocks. Right now, that's all we're going to do is just kind of put in some blocks. Now, this first building here on the right, we're going to make it somewhat tall. It's going to start below the horizon line and go above the horizon line. Okay, so do a little, we're going to basically make a little rectangle. And I'm going to have this rectangle go off the edge. Now, if you're watching, if you don't want point perspective, let me know what you thought about it in the comments down below. So here we go. Now we have the front of our block. We now need to draw the side. So we're going to connect this top corner and the bottom corner. We're going to draw a line to the dots. This is also where your straight edge comes in handy. You want to make sure you line it up and draw it as light as you can to where you can still see it. I know mine are dark. That's why, I'm doing it that way so you can see the marks that I'm doing. Now, if you're using a regular pencil, another thing that you're going to want to keep with you is a sharpener. You definitely want to keep your pencil sharpened. You want a nice fine point. Mechanical pencils are somewhat easy to keep a nice thin point. Because if you don't sharpen your regular pencil, it'll get dull and round. You won't have the sharp point, and some of your lines might be off. So we've drawn these two converging lines or diagonal lines. And now we just need to finish off this block. And this looks good. So we'll finish off the block here. And there we have our first block. Now we need to do a little bit of erasing. I would suggest erasing this line, this diagonal line here, and the horizon line that's inside the block. And if you drew light enough, it'll be fairly easy to erase these lines to where, you would hardly see them. If you draw too dark, it's a little bit harder to get rid of those lines. Now, there is a reason I am keeping this line here. The main reason is it doesn't matter how tall a building gets. All right, sorry. As I was just noticing that my camera stopped recording, so I'll go over this part. But as I was saying, the reason I did not erase this line here is because it doesn't matter how tall or short a building is, they're all even on the ground. So that's why I kept that bottom diagonal line. Now, since my camera stopped recording, I'm just going to talk about the left block where I just drew it. The one thing I wanted to make sure that I had even was the bottom with that right block. I wanted to make sure the bottom was even. The top I made a little bit smaller than or shorter than the horizon line. And I just kind of, again, went off the left side of the paper. Want to make sure you connect the top and bottom to the vanishing point. But you're not just going to show the front and the side. Since this is somewhat below the horizon line, you are going to see a little bit of the top of the left block. If it's above the horizon line, you only see two sides, like the block on the right. The block on the left is just a little bit different. So here I imagined where the end of this block is going to be and just lined it up with the vanishing point and drew a diagonal line connecting those two. And you it gets real close to the horizon line, but that's okay. Now we just have to finish off the back of the cube, and pretty much to do that, we need to connect the top part here and draw a line to where it meets that diagonal line that we drew for the top. And basically, there you would have it. You would have your block where you would see three sides: the front, the right side, and just a little bit of the top. And then once you have that, you want to erase any of the unnecessary lines that we don't need. Now, let's draw two more blocks. I kind of marked where I want to draw them. You want to have a little bit of space in between the two blocks because usually buildings are not really touching each other. They're very close, and when you're from a distance, they look like they are touching, but they really aren't. So I kind of marked where I'm going to put it. Also, when you touch the first blocks that we do, you can stop drawing your line. You don't need to draw it all the way because the front blocks, they're solid. We cannot see through them. So that just saves you a little bit of time and, you know, and not having to erase as much. So I'm going to make this block on the right side a little bit taller. And then I've also marked where I'm going to draw the left block. And this will also be taller going above the horizon line. And I'm going to speed it up here since we've, the steps are basically the same. But before I do that, you got to make sure that when you're drawing the other blocks, that your lines are vertical. Very important, because if you make them diagonal, they won't look right. Also, you got to make sure that your horizontal lines are horizontal. Now, I know that it sounds tedious to make sure that your lines are either vertical or horizontal, but trust me, if you make sure, then your drawings will look correct. They'll look right. See, if this line was diagonal, it wouldn't look right at all. It would look kind of weird. But I'm just going to go ahead and finish this block off, the front of it. I'm not going to go past the paper. This one, I'm going to make sure it just kind of looks like it ends, before it gets to the edge of the paper. And then I'm going to speed this up. And I'll be back with you guys in just a moment. We should have our 4 blocks. Before we start getting into some of the details, turning a block into a building, let's add a few other details first. Let's kind of build up the sidewalks and the streets. So pretty much for the sidewalks, we just want to come down here a little past the bottom of this first block. We want to come down a little bit. We want to give the people enough room to be walking. So we'll just draw a line here. And that should be enough room there. And we will connect this corner to the vanishing point. Just need to line it up. And now we have the beginning of our sidewalk, although we're not quite done yet because we don't want the sidewalk to pretty much be even with the street. So we need to give it a little bit of thickness. What I suggest doing is coming here to the corner, drawing just a little vertical line. You don't want it, too long. Short is just fine. We need to then draw the line, the horizontal line, and then the diagonal line to the vanishing point, like so. And here you have your basic sidewalk that seems to have a little bit of thickness that's kind of above the street a little bit. And you can do that. The same thing here. On the left side, we'll just, again, try to get it somewhat even. You don't want to go too far. And if I had a regular ruler, it probably would have been easier to line it up, but that's fine. That looks good there. Line this up to the vanishing point. Now, once you do this on your own, some people think it's, very therapeutic because you have so many steps that you have to follow. And once you kind of get in, you can zone out or get in that zen, just kind of drawing a lot of the details, making sure everything goes to the vanishing point. And then we can add in our details. Okay, so here we have our 4 blocks, the beginning of our sidewalk, and even the beginning of our street. Right, so let's talk about doors and windows on a building. Depending on how big you want your building, will depend on how big your doors and windows will be. And let's do the door first. The door size is very important. You don't want to make it too small unless you want to make these seem like really big, huge cities or buildings. You don't want to make the door too big because then it would be like giants that would go through and they wouldn't have a whole lot of room in these little blocks. So you just kind of want to make, an adequate size doorway. I will probably go, let's say this might be a 2-story building. Okay, so 2 stories, this is about a little more than 4.5 inches. So I'm going to put the doorway, I'm going to make a little mark right here, and I'm going to line it up with the vanishing point, and I'm only going to draw the diagonal line from here to the end of this one block here, and I would say that'll be the height of the door. And so we want to put it somewhat near the middle, or if you want to put it on the inside, closer to one side or the other, you can. But I'm going to put mine a little bit more in the middle. Draw 2 vertical lines. And there we have our door. If you want to do a little doorknob, you could do a little oval. Don't make it a circle, because if you make it look like a circle, then it would be over here. The shape should not look like a circle. It'd be more like a little oval, and that could be the doorknob. And for the windows, we'll start here. We'll use this same diagonal line. Let's have this one window about a little bit more than half the size of the door. And then we'll line up this line to the vanishing point. That way we'll know where the bottom of this window is, and we'll line it up here. So let's not forget this part. And then we need to draw the vertical line for this window. And let's do some of the windows on the bottom here. So we'll have this window somewhat wrap around, and we'll just have this go all the way across. Like that. Again, make sure that they're horizontal. So we have these 2 lines here. We'll say this window will end here. Again, it kind of wraps around, and then there will be a little space. We'll put another window here. So once you do that, that way you don't get confused, go ahead and erase these 2 lines. We'll do the same here, erase a little bit. And right now you have your door and a couple windows. Since this is like a 2-story building, we'll add a couple more windows here. Let's add the 2nd-story windows. We want to give a little bit of space, so maybe here will be where we'll start with the bottom windows, come up a little bit, and that'll be where the top of the windows are at. Okay, let's draw our horizontal lines And then our diagonal lines. And we want to leave a little bit of space at the top because we might want to put the name of this building around here and maybe here. So you got to leave a little bit of space for that. And we'll do this line. All right. Now, to finish off these windows, let's line it up with our bottom windows. And just make sure that you draw these vertical lines. Now, you see that there's a space here. You could, if you could even put the name of the building here if it was going to be short. If the name of the building is kind of long, I would suggest leaving more space here. So let's add another window here. We'll just make it about as even as the width of this door, so that there is a little bit of space between the windows. And we'll do the same thing here. This will be another wraparound window. And then this right here. Now we want to erase some of these lines. And don't worry if you erase part of your window. This is pencil, so we can just go over it. But, you know, we definitely want to erase some of the lines we don't need. Okay. And we'll just bring these lines back. Now, let's, talk about doing this building here. If we want to do some other windows, one of the things you can do, well, with the door, since we already have this little mark here, you can actually have a little line here that will show you where the top of that door needs to be. But let's talk about some of the windows. Maybe you want to add more. So a trick I would suggest doing is if you leave little marks on the front corner of the building, like so, this will be how tall the windows will be. Skip some space, do the same thing here. And skip a little bit of space, try to be about the same. And then what you can do is just draw light lines to the vanishing point. And let me kind of show you something that's interesting. And in case you don't know, that way you're not questioning if you are doing something right or wrong. So I'm just going to connect these lines to the vanishing point. Hopefully you guys are drawing, following along, and find this useful. If this helps you out, let me know in the comments. I would appreciate it. Remember, when you get to the end of the block, that's where you can stop drawing your lines. That way you don't have to erase a lot. Okay. Let me make this line darker in case you guys can't see it as well. Okay. So, yeah, I kind of did that, but that's okay. Do you notice anything about these lines that are going to the vanishing point? These two kind of look like they're going diagonally up, while these look like they're going down. Well, there's nothing wrong. That's the correct way of doing it in 1 point perspective. Now, these lines need to look like they're converging to this vanishing point. So you want to make sure that they do look like they are kind of diagonally down. If these lines that are past the horizon line, if you're drawing these up, you're doing it wrong. They have to go towards the vanishing point. The front side, these are all going to be horizontal. So you just need to make sure that they are horizontal. Okay. And then you can decide how you want these windows. They could all be joining, side by side. Maybe there's just one line that's separating one window to the next. Again, you want to make sure that they are vertical. And maybe the middle windows are longer compared to the sides, because not all buildings look the same. Not all buildings have the same windows. And make sure that these are vertical. And we could do the same here. We can even somewhat change it. Maybe there's a little bit of space between the corner of the building and the windows. It would get tricky to show that here. It would be really thin. That's why you want to make sure the point of your pencil is very sharp. And do the same thing here. This window will be about this wide. The one in the middle maybe won't be quite as long like the front. And then I went ahead and finished the windows of this building and the door. Don't forget to give it a little handle. It'll be very small. This time I kind of did more of a I'm not going to say a rectangle, more, I guess, similar to a very tiny parallelogram. Because again, the windows here, these are not squares and rectangles. They are more like either parallelograms, rhombuses. They're even top and bottom and on the sides, but they're not like squares or rectangles. The squares or rectangles are going to be on the front and look flat. The parallelograms are more on the sides. But yeah, give it a shot. Try to finish off the windows of this building. But I think I'm going to stop this video. I don't want it to run too terribly long. Why not try on your own to do the details of this building? The doors and windows. See if you can add some of the little air conditioning units on the top of this building. That kind of would just involve drawing a couple more cubes, but make it look like it's on the roof. You can also do that the same with these buildings, or these, the buildings here and the block here. Basically, I can show you in the next video. That's what I plan on doing. Showing some more of the details, the lines on the street, how to do words on a building. And yeah, that's basically going to be it for now. If you enjoyed the video and you found it helpful, again, please let me know in the comments. If you liked it, give me a thumbs up. Share the video also. If you found it helpful, maybe other people will find some use out of this video. Also, if you will click on the more in the description, you will find links to my various social medias. If you want to follow me there or get a hold of me that way, I'm pretty available. But that's going to wrap it up. So be awesome to one another. Simo says, get to creating.